6 field goals were 3-pointers.
For more perspective, we bring in Jalen Rose from the NBA Countdown crew. And Jalen, we just showed that graphic of what the Warriors did to the Celtics over the final 4.5 minutes of the third quarter. And we were talking to Draymond earlier. Since they've been on their run, they've continually just housed teams in the third quarter. What is it about this makeup or Steve Kerr or something that allows them to do this so consistently when the team they're playing knows they're liable to do it again?
And Ease, that didn't just start. For the last few years, I've been calling the third quarter Golden State Warriors the 31st NBA team. Everybody in the league knows they do a terrific job. Coach Head Steve Kerr and his staff does an amazing job of making adjustments at halftime. And more important, Steph Curry in particular comes out aggressive and blazing in that quarter, setting the tone for his team. And when you're playing at home usually and you're making shots, all of a sudden it becomes confidence boost for the role players. You get Gary Payton II back in the lineup. Jordan Poole starts to make shots. Looney gets a couple of buckets. You mentioned Draymond Green and the defensive tenacity and toughness and dog he brought to the game today, and just the competitive spirit. And then all of a sudden, you're breaking the Boston Celtics down. You'll look at the stats and you'll see the 18 turnovers, but it was 15 steals. They was taking the ball. It was like the Roots, like give it here. Don't say nothing. And then when you get those and you get out in transition, all of a sudden the shots become easier, the game becomes easier, the crowd gets involved in the game, and the Boston Celtics seem deflated, in particular the two best players. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown had 36 points in the first half. They only had 9 total in the second half. That won't get it done in the game two.
Solid Roots reference, especially with the picnic going on tonight. That was sly. I like that, Jalen. You know, one of the most accurate cliches in the NBA, especially when it gets to the playoffs, it's all about the adjustments the losing team makes. So the Warriors clearly made some adjustments from game 1 to game 2. Of those adjustments that you saw, what stood out the most?
The adjustment initially was just to play harder. Like, you get Gary Payton II back, another defender on the perimeter. You get Bielitsa some more minutes to give you another big body up front. But ultimately for the Warriors, Steph Curry offensively was really good in both games. But Draymond Green was the difference. The guy you just talked to, I know he took it personal. Al Horford ate his lunch in the first game. Not only was he making threes on them, but he was grabbing boards. It just became a physical, had a physical dominance up front. And so the bigs for the Boston Celtics, Horford, Robert Williams, the Robert Williams III is injured. I'll be curious to see, like, if he's even able to play if this goes to a 7-game series. I see him hobbled. I see him bouncing around. I credit him for being out there. And Grant Williams, lead the referees alone. You're a young player in the league. You're playing quality minutes. You played really well Game 7 against the Bucks, and you led the team in scoring. Ever since then, he's looking at the officials. And why? Because Draymond Green, Looney brought a level of physicality to the game that just was unmatched by the entire Boston Celtics team.
All right, so if you are the Celtics, it's understandable you may feel some type of way getting blown out in this particular game. But if you would have told them before the series started that they would leave the Bay with a 1-1 split going home for games 3 and 4, every dude on that roster would have paid for that. So with that said, Jalen, what did they need to do in game 3 to regain the lead in this series?
I know the dumbest thing in the history of the NBA playoffs that I've heard is that a series doesn't start until the road team wins the game. Like, that doesn't make sense. So for the Boston Celtics, when you go back home, here's what needs to happen. Your role players have to play better. And your starting point guard, Marcus Smart, he's the Defensive Player of the Year. But one of the things that he really improved was his offensive ability. He only had 2 points. He has to be better in that category. And so I think the bigs have to play better. I think Smart has to play better. And lastly, Jason Tatum is their best player. And in these playoffs, he's truly ascended himself into the conversation of being one of the top 7 or so players in the league by the way he's performed. But we haven't seen that in particular in the second half today and for a full game in this series. He's got to be a driving force at home also, just like Steph Curry was in these 2 games in Golden State.
Hey, your best player is also supposed to be the tone setter for your team, especially in playoff situations. And maybe Jason Tatum has to get back to that in game 3 if the Celtics are going to take care of business on Wednesday night from Boston Garden. Jalen Rose is going to be there. Appreciate the time, brother.
Yes, indeed. Appreciate the love.
Michael, speaking of Jason Tatum, 28 points in the Game 2 loss. He's new on SportsCenter.
No, I don't think so. I feel like a lot of shots I missed last game were shots I normally make, and a lot of shots that I got today, they were just falling. They was falling tonight and they weren't last game.
We'll go in the middle here to Gary Washburn.
Gary Washburn, Boston Globe. Jason, Draymond seemed to get going. He drew a bunch of fouls. You, Jalen. It seemed like he was trying to punk you guys early and just show the physicality. Did you notice that? And did you guys get caught up too much in the officiating? And then why the sloppiness with the ball?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we know what Draymond brings to the game. And I love that about him. Obviously I played with him, and we tried to match that. And I just kind of felt like we weren't getting the benefit of the doubt, when we were trying to play with that, physicality. We do got to take, better care of the ball. They got a lot of points off that, off our turnovers. That's something we got to be better, for next game. Because we know, throughout the playoffs, the games that we have high turnovers, we kind of result into a loss. So that's definitely a point of emphasis, taking care of the ball for next game.
Right side, second row, Tim Bontemps.
Hey, Jason, you said yesterday you guys just have to go out and actually play better in the third quarter and can't really just talk about it. Obviously, it was a struggle again today. What do you see as kind of the recurring issues that come up to keep you guys from being able to have the success there that you want?
I think tonight, turnovers, and I think sometimes letting our offense affect how we defend. Kind of we was a little stagnant there in the third quarter, and I feel like it translated on the defensive end, and they got going and hitting shots and things like that.
Road, then at home in these playoffs. What has to change for you guys to be able to hold home court as you get back there with obviously, getting at least what you wanted to do coming here and getting one of these two games in Golden State?
Just playing with a sense of urgency. I think human nature plays a part, and when you go on the road, obviously, it's a tougher environment. I feel like recently we kind of relaxed at home, just, whether we thought because we had home court advantage, we came out a little more relaxed. So just having that sense of urgency, knowing that we're at home, but, that we need to play better at home.
On the left side, second row.
Jason. Interesting comment there by Jason Tatum saying that recently he and the Celtics have a relaxed win at home. Game 3 is Wednesday from Boston. Tatum scored a team-high 28 points, now has 526 in this postseason, fourth most by a Celtics player in a single postseason, the only with more. A couple of Hall of Famers, Larry Bird and Kevin Garnett.
If the Celtics are going to win this series, you may have to pass Bird on the list over these next 2 wins for Boston if they win this series.